Hello. So I recently did a Howling 1 review, and at the moment of the recording of this recording, I am at about the midway point of the entire franchise. There's 8 films, and I've watched 4 of them now. So I decided to keep it going and do a quick general thoughts video on the Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf, which released in 1985. So this film is a sequel to the first film, and the connection is the fact that the main character, the main male character in the film, is the brother of Karen White, the character played by Dee Wallace in the previous film. At the end of the first film, you see her breaking the news to the world that she is a werewolf on live TV, and then purposely getting shot and killed by her friend. And then at the beginning of this film, you open up at a funeral. It's Karen's funeral. Her brother's there. Christopher Lee is there. A bunch of people that you would come, or one person that you would come to realize is a werewolf is there. But when this film first opened up, I didn't realize that Christopher Lee was going to be in as much of it as he was. And having seen the movie, I can say that he's really the only redeeming quality of this film. So it opens up at a funeral for Karen. She leaves the funeral. Christopher Lee's character comes up, tries to tell the brother that she was a werewolf. He's apparently a leading person in the world of cryptozoology or whatever it is. And the brother doesn't believe him. A bunch of stuff happens. The brother comes to believe him and agrees to go with him to Transylvania to try to put a stop to the werewolves, I guess. And the person in charge of all these werewolves, like the werewolf leader, is Sherba, and she's trying to adopt another werewolf. I believe her name was Mariana or Madeline or something like that. It starts with an M. And she's trying to adopt her as her daughter. Meanwhile, she's having orgies with her husband and the same girl. There's like 3 werewolf orgies in this movie, and a bunch of stuff happens. They try to break in and put a stop to them. There's almost no werewolf action in this film, despite it being a sequel to The Howling and having Your Sister is a Werewolf in the title of the film. There's almost no werewolf action. Of the first 3, this one has the least werewolf action. I was going to say of the first 4 that I've seen, but that's not even true, because the 4th one is even worse as far as giving you werewolf stuff. I said that Christopher Lee was the highlight of the film. That's because he is. I was happy that he was in a majority of the movie. You could even make the argument that Christopher Lee is potentially the protagonist of the film. I imagine that he was a lot of the marketing because he's Christopher Lee. He's like a horror icon, one of the greatest horror actors of all time. He makes everything slightly better than it is. And in general, I would argue that the film is not worth watching unless you're a Christopher Lee historian and want to watch all his films, or you're trying to watch all the Howling films, or for some reason you just like shitty movies. Because nobody else in this movie can act, essentially. The main lead character, the male, cannot act for shit. And I really have to hand it to the Howling franchise at this point, having seen 4 films, not including the first film, which in general just feels like it's on a whole nother level as far as filmmaking. There is not a single male protagonist in these films, as far as the main lead, that can act for shit. They are all suck. They're all horrible. I would argue that this one of 2, 3, and 4 is the best as far as the male leads acting goes. But even then, it's still pretty garbage. And you almost get no werewolf action until about the very end of the film, and even then, there's still barely any werewolf action at all. I don't know, man. I can't really tell you much about this movie. It genuinely feels the best comparison I can make is to a 70s vampire movie. It doesn't even feel like a werewolf film. The film feels like a vampire movie. It feels like a slow paced haunted house vampire film from the 70s, but instead of being good like something like Count Dracula's Great Love, it's awful. It's not worth watching. Vinegar Syndrome put this out on 4K, and I wish that they had put out 3, because I've watched the first 4 now, and I have a lot more redeeming things that I found in the third film than I did the second film. But I know that this has like a very huge cult following too. within the horror fan base. People love this sequel for some reason. It's the only Howling sequel I ever hear anything about, but there's almost nothing redeemable about this film unless you're into Christopher Lee. And it feels like a 70s vampire film without vampires, has barely any werewolves in it. It's not good. That's my general thoughts on the film. You could sum it up in a couple of sentences. It's not good. Christopher Lee is worth watching. It feels like a 70s vampire film with no werewolves or vampires. And yeah, it sucks. If I were going to give it a star rating, I would probably give it about 2 stars. I would give it 1 star if it was not for Christopher Lee being present in the film, but he is an icon. He's somebody that makes every film slightly better. And based on some of the behind the scenes stuff that I've heard about Christopher Lee in this movie, he basically saved the production because they were sent the wrong suits, and he was like, well, why don't we include this whole subplot about evolution and monkeys and stuff? And he basically saved the production of this film. So I mean, I like Howling 3, so who's to know if we would have ever gotten a Howling 3 if it wasn't for Christopher Lee basically saving the production. So not only is he can save movies that he's in, he saved a potential sequel that he wasn't even involved in. So yeah, I would give this a 2-star rating. I would not recommend it unless you are a Christopher Lee fan, you really love werewolves, or you want to complete the Howling franchise like I am. I wish Vinegar Syndrome had put out Howling 3 instead on 4K. I was thinking about buying this during their halfway sale, but I am absolutely not putting this on my shelf now. I would maybe buy a DVD if I found it really cheap, but it's not worth the premium price of a boutique label release, especially not a 4K one. And yeah, so 2-star movie, not worth watching. I'm going to do a review on Howling 3, which I have a lot better things to say about it. This one just sucked. So expect that Howling 3 review soon. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe. I'll be posting more Howling videos. At the end of this whole thing, hopefully I can do a tier ranking for the Howling franchise as a whole and give my general thoughts on the whole thing. Maybe like an overall score. So yeah, thank you for watching.